Because I'm so worried about that. These podcasts notoriously go so long at this point.
True.
We're live. We're going live.
Oh shit, we're live?
We're going live while we wait for John. So that we can start doing other things. This wasn't the order I wanted to do things. But hey, we'll do it like this anyway. I was gonna do something else, but it's okay, I guess. It's all John's fault.
Damn.
Don't worry about it. Let's just drop these. Where else do they gotta go? Not those servers. Not yet. I'll start advertising in that server next season, not this season. I think I should stop advertising in that server because I think that one's dead, but what do I know? Who's to say? Oh, did I not post here last week? I might not.
Or the week before.
Oops.
Huh? What? Where?
Oh.
In the normal streams channel that you post where like you're going live like.
Oh, yeah, to be fair, I haven't posted in the anime one since the first episode of the season. I posted everywhere else.
Yeah.
No, I was talking about a different one. I have Michael and I have a school server that was still technically a part of it as alumni, and when I first post...
I don't know if I'm still in
you
there.
might not have moved to the new one. I don't know if because they made a new one.
Don't think I did.
No, I don't think you did. That's okay. I can get you in there if you want.
I mean,
I don't know if you want.
sure.
Why do I have the word Columbia? What does that mean? What does that
I don't
mean?
know.
No, but I posted
Columbia.
I posted in there, and they and the one person who really likes the stream is like, "Yay, the stream's back!" Because I had been posting the link in the dead version of that server. They're like, "Yay, Sean's back!" I'm like, "Oh, how nice!" So I posted in there, but I forgot last week. But now we're back. Hello everybody. We're live. We're gonna hold this for a minute, and we're just gonna go right into what we be doing. Doing. There. Perfect. And we could just talk a little bit while I wait for John. Because the layout's perfect, just like this. We just don't have John's beautiful face. And his voice or thoughts. Which we will need to actually podcast. But we can do other things in the meantime. Like talk about what we've been up to. I'll be real. I don't really want to talk about JJK because the chapter was whatever this week. There's not a lot to talk about besides the fact that he went, here's a thing that the main characters have been trying to do. And now that you know the plan, you should also know the plan isn't going to work. Which I love when he does this. He informs us of something as it's about to happen and then goes, no. That's why I didn't
know he was chill like that.
He do be schmoovin'. Miguel might be one of the funniest characters, whether that's intentional or not. Also
How
racism.
does his power work?
Fuck if we know.
You know, his internal tempo causes buffs and debuffs to him and his opponents. What does that mean? I don't know.
There's a character in Prince of Tennis who's like this.
I haven't read the chapter yet, so hearing that, what the fuck?
Yeah, Miguel's
Don't worry.
crazy.
That's the word-for-word explanation. They don't give you more than that.
He's schmoovin'.
I originally read it. I read the scans like 2 days early. It's even better. It's even worse. They make even less sense.
Well, yeah, because they don't know what the fuck they don't know what the fuck he's saying. You think he doesn't know what the fuck he's saying? You think the fans do?
I read One Piece, which means I have to read scans.
No, you don't.
That's just what you do.
See,
no,
this
Sean,
isn't.
You don't understand.
This isn't fair. Because I do. You don't get. I'm gonna make this very clear. I'm gonna catch up to One Piece, and I'm still gonna wait for the chapter to drop, and you're all gonna have to deal with that.
No, see, the problem is that Twitter doesn't wait for the chapter to drop.
That's fine.
No.
I don't fucking use that app. I'll keep muting all of One Piece on Twitter.
Hey, see, that's my problem. Is that I'm enough on Twitter and Reddit and stuff that if I didn't read scans, I'd be spoiled on it. Like straight one.
Look, the fact that my Reddit and YouTube hasn't somehow devolved into One Piece spoilers, despite how much One Piece I've read, is impressive. It means that my phone's not data mining me properly enough. I would know.
I mean, my phone and stuff hasn't noticed I've been reading Assassination Classroom, so.
True. Green Greens, very good. Dear and Enemy, kind of a wild chapter this week. I'm interested.
I gotta read the past, 4 of them.
I still need to read this week's.
Yeah, this week does something neat, and it ends on a what the fuck?
Sounds like that manga.
Yeah, it's cool. I like it. We'll come back to the other 2 things I've been reading. Since last time, because they're a little bit longer conversations. I finished Ocean's Heart. It's a good game. I like it. It's a neat little small team made Zelda game. That's good. I recommend it. It's a fun time. Perhaps one day I will go and replay through that game and make use of the reflect power and just run around and shine everything, because I didn't realize you could get away with doing that. And that seems a lot more fun than what I was doing. But yeah, that's cool. I 100%ed that game, so that's I will simply not touch it again for a year and a half, because that tends to be my pattern, and I will 100% it again, because that's my pattern with those games, with those kinds of games that I do that with. I booted up Digimon Survive. I played 2.5 hours of that game. It sure didn't feel like I did 2 combats.
There's a lot of talking.
Sure is a visual novel. It's a very. I don't know if you have seen or played any of the GBA DS Shin Megami Tensei games.
No.
It's structurally very similar to that, and I imagine it's going to keep being that, where it's you're going to be able to take 2 or 3, maybe 4 party members in with you who have their own demon, but it's a Digimon in this instance, and then you have based on conversation choices you make determines if some of them are going to get blocked out on your path. The only thing is, this game seems like it's going to have significantly less characters than those do, so maybe they aren't going to block them out. Maybe you just get additional content the more choices lean towards certain characters. I've really only interacted with 2 of the supporting cast characters. I've met the 3rd and then have run into the 4th now. I've run into the 3rd. The 3rd, seemingly prominent character, who actually I can visually see the Digimon for. He's gonna be interesting. I've read some of the character bios that maybe I should have held off on reading, and they certainly do tell me shit's gonna happen in that game. That game does have a really cool dark atmosphere to it that I really like, that I think is gonna make it really neat. Combat seems kind of easy right now with how they have it set up, because it's kind of
also early game combat and attack.
Yeah, but it's the same thing where, as long as you understand that in early Fire Emblem you should put your unit outside of the range of the enemy so that they move closer so you get the first attack, or that you should put a unit who can take a hit in the range to then lure them. As long as you understand that basics, you'll be fine for the beginning of the game. This is a Disgaea, and other directional grid-based tactics games where if you are facing away from the enemy, you're going to get bodied, and if you are attacking them from behind, they're going to get eviscerated. If Disgaea isn't the right analogy for you, it's like the Yu Yu Hakusho Dark Tournament GBA game, where you can do these things. And you have special moves that you could do that have different ranges and radiuses that run off at different...
Yes, of course. They wouldn't know Disgaea, but
they
would
you
know.
I couldn't even give you the proper name of that right now. I would have to find my copy of it to tell you what the actual name of that game is. But yeah, the tactics game where you can play as the guy from Yu Yu Hakusho who has the yo-yo, and you can do sick yo-yo tricks on people from across the map. What a good game. I'm excited to play more Digimon Survive when I have time.
Is it Spirit Detective? Is it that one?
No, Spirit Detective's the bad one. I'm pretty sure. Spirit
Tournament. Do you actually tournament tactics?
Yeah, that one. Wow, crazy that the tactics game has tactics in the name on a GBA game. Wild. Yeah, Spirit Detective's a goofy ass game. The Spirit Detective is more akin to the Legacy of Goku games. And that they might be made by the same people. Oh hey, who's that?
It's him.
Spirit Detective is made by
John.
Atari. I don't feel like looking up who made Legacy of Goku.
It might not. They might have had similar production. They have similar energy where you're like, you maybe shouldn't play like this, or maybe bad, at certain times. That is, of course, me talking about Legacy of Goku 1, not the greatest game of all time, Legacy of Goku 2. Not to be confused with another bad game, Legacy of Goku 3, Boo's Fury. You should play Legacy of Goku 2, it slaps. That game's incredible. I'm a GBA connoisseur, you have to forgive me. So other things that I've been up to. I watched the newest episode of Moonlit in Call. That sure was an episode. Things happened.
I wasn't paying attention.
That's fine. It wouldn't have made jack shit. It wouldn't have made jack shit sense to you at all. The only thing you would have done is seen the character whose favorite meal at the hot pot place is entirely a hot pot of cream, and you would have seen him go, "What if I add mayonnaise to it?" And you would have screamed.
I did see that.
You might be wondering, how is that character alive? The answer is they're not. And we'll leave that as it is for people who watch Moonlit or might watch Moonlit to eventually find out. Good. I'm excited to see where this next arc seems like it's gonna be really cool. I'm not excited for one particular character design in it, but maybe it won't show up till the very end, and maybe they'll have a good reason for it. Maybe she fuses with her wolf companion, and that's why that's the outfit. That doesn't mean that it makes any sense, but perhaps that's that. I just had that realization. I watched the next episode of Tamer. I'll talk about it when we actually talk about shows, briefly. To say that, yeah, we made the right call, guys. Good job on all your parts. That's not because I think the episode of Tamer is bad. It's just that I think everything else was much better.
Yeah, Tamer had a completely solid episode.
Yeah, it was
yeah.
Me and Mason did also watch it.
They talk about slavery. It's wild. Yeah. They use slavery as a way to convince people not to kill other people. They're like, you shouldn't kill those guys, because if you kill them, their suffering ends here. And if you don't, they get to live their lives as slaves.
Doing hard manual labor for the rest of their lives.
It's crazy.
Won't be allowed to die.
For the benefit of Orin Nation, I go, okay, Tamer, we're doing things here.
Alrighty.
What an odd stance to take.
Forgot you started off as a dark show.
Yeah. That's a time. And then let's bounce back to the manga real quick. I've read significant amounts of 2 manga. Firstly, I'm out of Whole Cake. I did it.
Let's go.
Let's go.
You want to know exactly where I am?
Monkey's holding a sword.
That's exactly where I am. It's gotta be Wano. The monkey's holding a sword. That's why I said I'm out of Whole Cake. That's why I didn't say I'm in Wano, because if I trust Luffy, I'm not sure I'm gonna be right. But yeah, interesting things are happening. Whole Cake. Let's talk about Whole Cake. Because last podcast I had gotten to the plan failing. So the plan never really gets better. They just improvise the rest of the way, which, you know what? Good on them. Man, the back half of Whole Cake, and by this I mean the fight between Luffy and Katakuri,
Slaps.
fucking rad. That is so fucking good. That might be my favorite fight. Like, not counting the fights that aren't real fights, i.e. Luffy and Usopp and Luffy and Sanji. That might be my favorite fight. I'm afraid to try to watch it animated because I have been informed that Whole Cake's pacing is horrible in the anime.
So that fight takes about 20 episodes, and it's like, 'cause it's the last 5 minutes of 20 of them.
Yeah, I was informed that the fight against Cracker is like 15 episodes. And I went, that doesn't sound right
No,
at all.
It takes for fucking ever. It made me kind of stop watching One Piece for a little bit because I was just getting really bored with the cracker fight.
Whole Cake is based though because like every member of the Straw Hat who's there gets to actually be competent and do stuff, and it's really cool. Like
Brook's the real MVP.
Brook crazy.
The GOAT.
Brook absolutely wild in Whole Cake. Nami pops the fuck off numerous occasions in Whole Cake.
Nami gets like the major power boost.
Yeah, because she gets
she
gets the science climate baton before she gets to go to Whole Cake, and then she gets to use it, and then she steals a part of Big Mom's soul.
Man.
Yeah.
Wild.
That whole thing is very funny.
Really appreciate the bit that is the daughter, one of the daughters, the fishman daughter of Big Mom, stealing away the sea slugs by telling them they deserve the weekend off because they work so hard. Based, fuck your employer, take the weekend off. You heard it here first. That's a rad bit. God, Luffy's so rad. Sanji's super cool. I'm so glad that Sanji gets to be Sanji. I stand by my statement last week about the conversation about evil women in One Piece. Pudding, yay. It doesn't mean that I dislike her character. You know, it's fine. She's her. You know, that's how that be. Yeah. Some wild fucking things are happening at at Revelry. I've only briefly started to get to see. I'm excited for that to develop when I come back to it in 50 chapters, I'm sure. By the way, this officially means that I am on chapter 910. I'm close. I'm getting there. I'm significantly closer than I was a long time ago.
You're less than 200 chapters away,
which feels insane. Mm-hmm. And then what actually got me to finish Whole Cake was that I was not reading, and instead I was reading something else, and I looked at my phone and realized I had read 81 chapters of A Prince of Tennis, something I've already watched the entire anime of. I went, I should probably finish Whole Cake. I should probably be fair. I've now actually read 100 chapters of The Prince of Tennis. That anime adapts pretty close to the manga, at least this first part. I have a hard time thinking, like, my brain, there are moments where I read that manga and I'm like, I don't think this happens in the anime. And then I go, and then they do something, I go, no, I remember this vividly now, that this character's walked up and done some stupid shit. What I mean by that is, there's a part where they're practicing, and a reporter comes up and goes, yeah, we just checked out this school and this new and upcoming ace player. And I go, I don't think they talk about that guy this early. Because he's the character in The Prince of Tennis who has the devil mode. I'm not going to elaborate on that. Not to be confused with the character who plays Bible Tennis. That's a separate character from a different team. I kid you not, his style of tennis is Bible tennis. That's what they call him. God, I love this. I love this manga so much. But yeah, so they talk about him, and I'm like, I don't remember them mentioning him so early. And then he shows up at their school because he falls asleep and misses his stop at the bus. And I go, did this happen? And then he walks up, and one of the upperclassmen who's not good enough to be on the actual tennis team hits a tennis ball at him, and he fucking catches it in the air and bounces it on the rim of his racket. And I go, no, I remember this, because then he walks away and he flicks the tennis ball back, and Ryoma catches it and does the same shit back at him, which is Ryoma's entire character in the entirety of this manga. I explained to Mason, I don't remember if Michael was here when I did so, but there was also a bit where one of the teams at one of the tournaments goes to warm up, and they are a doubles team, and they go and they hit like 2 or 3 balls back and forth, not at like ridiculous speeds, but like they keep rhythm to do it, and everyone's like, whoa, that's so cool, they're so good that they can do that. And then Ryoma walks through them and hits all 3 balls so that they keep in motion, so that he doesn't interrupt them from doing it. He just walks through, bats them back and forth in pattern, and then just goes and gets a drink of water, turns around and goes, "Yeah, you think you're hot shit, huh? I'm in 7th grade." Because that is the entire bit of Prince of Tennis, is everyone's like, he's a 7th grader. How can he do all of this? And we almost like, me. I very much enjoy that manga.
Ryoma just goes, "You got a long way to go."
Yeah, that is.
Or whatever.
Mada dane. Yep.
I just like to imagine it's just a scene from like
it is.
Benchwarmers where he hands them like the envelope and it just like folds out to a picture of him and written in crayon it says "I am 12" with like $20 in there.
There's a really funny. There's a couple of really funny bits in this manga that aren't meant to be funny, but they come off as so. They play matches as like they run like a ton of laps. To the point where they are physically exhausted. And the player on the team who's good at stats, that's his whole type of tennis, is he just studies players and like things about them, is the one developing their training routine. And so he makes the other members of the team play against each other, but he times their starting games to be so that when they start playing, they will hit their point of exhaustion mid-match, because he's an asshole, where he's like, this is to test your stamina. So in 3 minutes, those two should start playing, because that's when their fatigue's gonna kick in. And they do one of these matches, and it's like the heavy, aggressive powerhouse character, and he's against the team captain. And if you know anything about Prince of Tennis, his team captain is insane. Tezuka, the Tezuka Zone. Which has not happened yet in the manga, because they saved the Tezuka Zone for later. But they do a bit where they're playing, and like they start the game, and then they pan back over to Ryoma's game, and then they pan back over, and the captain's game is done. And they go, "What the fuck happened?" And they go, "Well, yeah, he's the captain. He bodied him." And they show the powerhouse player lying on the floor, lying on the court, and he looks over, and you just watch as the captain removes a weighted ankle bracelet from his leg after playing him, and the implication was that all of them were supposed to have taken those off after running the laps, and the captain just didn't. So not only did he not break a sweat, but he also bodied this man while being weighted down. They do a very similar thing where they play their entire first set of like an important city tournament with the weighted bracelets on, and their whole team just drops them at once, and they're like, now it's time to get real, and then they bodied the next team 6-0 straight for every game they play. This manga's rad. Prince of Tennis is really cool. I'm about to get to the game where Ryoma plays the guy who picks up tennis because he wants to brutally abuse people while playing it. To the point where his introduction is him picking up rocks, hitting them with his racket at Ryoma. Yeah.
That's cheating.
Well, no, they're not in the game. That's just abuse outside. He's just physically assaulting people on school property. This is not to be confused with the game prior, where Ryoma is trying to fight against a guy who paralyzes his arm mid-match by making him hit topspin and backspin back and forth repeatedly so that his arm goes into a state of temporary paralysis. And Ryoma's answer to this is to spin to hit the ball so that he like physically moves his body so that he can actually move his arm and hit the ball. And by doing this, he loses the grip of his racket. It hits the pole of the net, fractures, and part of it comes back and cuts the lid of his eye. He wins that game.
He starts using his left hand.
But that is Ryoma's bit. Is that the first chapter, Ryoma walks up, he bodies a man. He walks up, a guy goes, seventh grade. It is before he's even in the school, so it's like, you're a 6th grader, you can't beat me. Ryoma beats him, like destroys him for like 2 games worth of tennis rules, and everyone's like, okay, the kid's just getting lucky. Surely you can do this. And then Ryoma switches his tennis racket to his left hand, and the guy goes, "You're fucking kidding me," and gives up. But that's all I've been doing. That's all I love Prince of Tennis, dude.
Tennis. Bonk.
Yeah. Let's go to Mike. Let's go to Michael. Michael, what have you been doing?
So I did like. Did I do a whole lot more than those things? Let's. How can I see what I've? I did a whole lot of like 2 things at best, if I can like remember what I did.
You played 14.
I did play FF14.
You are now officially done with Shadowbringers.
Yeah, I am done with the main story of Shadowbringers. That main story goes fucking crazy.
You see why it's in like my top 5 games of all time.
Yeah, no, I understand why people think Shadowbringers is one of the greatest things ever made. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
The like the actual like gameplay of it's really good. Like all of the fights are real good. I still think I like the Stormblood set better overall, but that's also because a lot of the post ones are really good. Tsukiyomi's my favorite trial in that game. Tsukiyomi's amazing. It's also I don't play tank, so I don't have the thing that is Susanoo is the greatest trial ever made because I've never played tank for it. Which,
I mean,
Susanoo is a very cool trial.
Just get into a party finder and just do it unsynced, and you can do it on your white mage.
Rude. But yeah. Shadowbringers is fantastic. Its main villain is he's so good. He's just great. He
is one of my favorite characters in media.
He's very good. Yeah. But yeah, FF14 very fun, very good. Oh yeah, this is kind of it partially pertains to the other thing I did. So I was gone this weekend. I was visiting my brother and sister for Easter. And yeah, that was fun. We were at my brother's apartment because he lives closer to where my sister's college is than we live to, than like they live to us. So easier meetup point. And on like car rides, because this is a thing this is why I read as much manga as I do half the time, is when I have really long car rides, I read manga during them. So I am now through what would have been the first season of Assassination Classroom. So I'm at chapter now I can check on my computer. I don't need to pick up my phone, I think I'm at chapter 85-ish. 88. Chapter 79 I think is what ends what would have been season 1. So that is ending the vacation arc, the summer break vacation thing. The Assassination Classroom starts off kind of weird. It's like, yeah, we got this really fun setup that is gotta kill the teach. It's like really funny off rip. And then it starts like giving you like random bits and pieces of like character backstory, and you're like, okay, there's some interest here. Like when you learn about Crossma's backstory, and Koro Sensei randomly hits you with some like random shit that makes you go, wait, oh god, he's gonna have a really tragic backstory at some point that we're not gonna get to forever. And then the summer break island adventure arc hits, and actually every chapter is just, it feels like every like mini arc within it is a major character moment for a new character that you haven't really gotten a character moment for yet. And they're all such good payoffs for where you're at in the story. This cast is wonderful. Like, I legitimately love every character in it. Well, most of them. When you have 30 important characters, it's a little hard to be like have them all be super memorable. But they're all the ones that I like can't think of are all very good. They're very fun characters. I enjoy all of them. Koro Sensei is one of the greatest characters in anything. Principal Asano is one of my favorite villains ever. That man is fucking terrifying. Like, actually insane how terrifying they make a man who could just talk to people real good. But yeah. Assassination Classroom, very good. I feel like I did other things, but I didn't. I think I fucked around like an Outer Wilds mod or something.
I do remember you saying that.
Yeah, I did that. I did like the first 3 chapters of Case the Golden Idol. That game requires way too much thoughts for my small brain. So I don't know if I'll continue that. Much like Obra Dinn. It's a very cool game, I'm really bad at paying attention to things that are like, in case the Golden Idol is like Obra Dinn levels of, oh, you needed to notice that this person had a horse race ticket in their pocket, which means that in this list of characters, they are the one with a gambling addiction. And that's chapter 3 of like 15.
Ooh.
This is the easy chapter still. Yeah. It's crazy. Very, very neat game though.
I do want to chime in that a coworker this week was talking about like math and science stuff, and throughout like a terminology term thing, and he did it in a way that my immediate reaction was shut the fuck up. Not in like a I don't want to listen to you shut the fuck up, but in like a Zero Escape brings up some dumb pseudoscience thing, and my immediate reaction is shut the fuck up. To which I immediately went, by the way, have you heard of this game franchise? Something tells me you're really gonna like it. So I pitched him the series. I wish I could remember what it was he said, but he quite literally was like something theory, and I was like, shut up. I was like, oh no, I'm back. I can't escape.
Zero Escape.
Zero Escape. Mason, what have you been up to?
Yeah, speaking of Zero Escape, I played more of that.
You're like maybe halfway there. That might be a stretch.
Maybe.
Escape
He's
is
in a month of the way through ZTD.
I think you're halfway through the escape room count.
Yeah.
Whether or not
that
you're
game is something. Like, I enjoy it. Don't get me wrong.
Game's fucking.
you're
But that
too
game's wild.
deep to not enjoy it, but like
Yeah.
but also
it's
like
also-
oh boy.
It's definitely the game that has elicited the most what the fuck out of me. I think I have
You
said
could
that
say it
more
also
than-
elicited some.
What the hell?
I'm very excited, Mason, because I want you to understand that what ZTD is for the Zero Escape series is also what DR3 is for the Danganronpa. Sorry, V3 is for the Danganronpa series, where the game makes you go, "You just did that, huh? You sure did."
Oh boy.
It's almost like
okay.
these two guys formed a studio together after these games
Yeah.
released for a reason.
Crazy. So yeah, I've played more of ZTD. I started up on Path of Exile again today because the new season came out on Friday, and it's actually decent for once. It hasn't been a decent like thing for like 2 years, so I'm happy to try it out again and dip into that bottomless pit. But the biggest thing that I did was I saw this guy this weekend.
That's me.
Other way.
I think it's well,
Oh, it
this
would be
way.
the other
Yeah, that
because
way.
you're reversed
Okay.
for
yeah,
yourself
sorry. Yeah,
because
So-
Discord's fucking stupid.
yeah. So I saw John this weekend. I drove to the other side of the state for his girlfriend's birthday.
You want to go from here, here.
Yeah, like here, like pretty close to the coast to
Right
like
on the knuckle, yeah.
here. Yeah, it's a 2.5 hour drive. But it was worth it to see all of our all that friend group and see John. Because I hadn't seen the homie in since Yomicon. So about 5 months.
One day we'll plan it so that we all do a little meetup.
Yeah. It was a good time. I don't know how, but even though it was his girlfriend's birthday, I went home with presents. So,
Pace.
Everybody out.
hold on. I have to show.
We do.
So-
Base presents, by the way, because I am one of the best.
Very base presents. So John got
Why did I give you
this
that
for
joke,
me.
John's like,
Which
why did I
is-
give you that? That was meant for me.
No, literally, it was one of the prizes where I was like, I have this is very free.
And then also the boys.
I do appreciate the
Sean
fact
met-
that they do indeed
Sean,
connect.
that character?
They do
Yeah, and
connect.
They're on a stand that connects together, and it
Yes.
is
Hmm.
very gay and very awesome.
I love it.
What, Michael?
The first character is a One Piece character, and I don't know if
No,
you
it
know.
isn't.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
that's-
is.
Yeah,
What?
it is.
Yeah.
That's Toki
Oh.
from One Piece.
I thought it was a character from Apothecary.
Nope. it's
I
just
also
one
did when I
art.
first saw it.
You
But also,
fooled
as
me.
a Wano character, and I
Then
don't,
no,
don't
no,
know
I
if
have
Sean's seen her
not.
yet.
You
That's
meet
a
her
horror character.
you meet her very early on though.
I think that's
It-
Toki. I don't.
It's Hiyori.
Oh yeah.
But
A lot of mono characters I don't remember the names of.
Yeah.
There's a big jumble, like 15 that are just a character
well, I guess
that character that is part of a major group that I don't remember.
I was gonna say, unless Mason's done other stuff in the last day and a half that he hasn't been here, I guess I can
Oh.
kind of jump off.
The other thing I was gonna say was the moment that stuck out to me for that was just, aside from being able to like hang out with you and Amber finally again, doing my best Jay Schlatt impression. There was we had like an hour and a half of karaoke in a devoted room, so I did my way. That was fun. But yeah, that's been about it. Oh, I had a job interview today as well that I think went well, so that was nice.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah, John.
So I guess I can hop off that. So yeah, my girlfriend's birthday was this weekend, as well as my brother's actually. So my parents went down there to see him in North Carolina, and we went to round one and with a bunch of friends basically. And they have like these party packages. You can do bowling and like the free play games, which nobody did, and the karaoke as well, and like billiards and stuff, and it was fun. Then after all that, we went and played some claw machines because we're addicted. I mean, we like playing claw machines, and so after thoroughly dominating those, I just gave most of my stuff to Mason. The only thing I took home was a Shaun the Sheep plushie, because it's based. But yeah, I won all three of those on different types of games too. By the way, because there's the one Japanese crane game where it's like a little hook, and you drop it down and it hooks like a little gift, which was for the ghetto. There's one where you have to like line it up perfectly and it puts a hole through like into like a hole basically and pushes through like a little winner thing. And that was for the Gojo. And the last one is like the two little claws that come and they flip the box basically forward, and when you flip it off then you win. So I did that. But yeah, dominant crane game performance again by me, honestly. To be honest, just kind of absolutely cleaning house. I had
Ideal
a fun
boyfriend
weekend.
material.
Fun. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Busy as shit weekend though. Besides that, also had to do house inspection stuff for house I bought. That's going okay. We played some board games as well. I had to play Pokemon throughout all this because the Global Challenge 3 was this weekend, where you can play up to 45 games and get points for that. I managed to sneak away 10 championship points despite only playing 16 games because I did not feel like playing anymore. But so I'm just under halfway to a world qualification, which again, probably unlikely, but it's fun. And Pokemon Schnauze Reg G, which is the format I have to play the last two tournaments I'm going to this season, like the majors on. And it is one restricted, which is going to be incredibly volatile and painful, and a lot of horses. We went from bear meta to horse meta because Calyrex Shadow Rider and Calyrex Shadow Rider are abominations that should never have been created. 165 special attack plus 150 speed equals Burr.
It's crazy how people like talk about half of the Gen 8 decks as abominations that shouldn't have been created.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, basically everything from the
crazy.
DLCs.
Yeah.
Everything in the DLCs. I mean, you got the Galarian
Bird,
Birds,
like
which are
every
really cool.
important DLC mon.
And you have the Calyrex horses, which are broken, shattered garbage. You have Urshifu, which might be the most broken Pokemon in the history of ever creation.
Went the Reggie's crazy too for a while?
The Reggies were okay in this format.
Regieleki had a gimmick that was
Regieleki
being
got
very
gutted.
fast.
Regieleki got gutted because they changed his ability, not Drago's ability, just his ability to be half as effective. And so Drago is actually better in this format, or in this generation. Oh, and also because Legends Arceus is considered Gen 8 games, the Ursalunas are also at fault there.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's certainly going to be a time, and we'll see how it goes. As my entire group chat of trying to figure this out starts freaking out about it. Oh, and I also baked a cake for my girlfriend's birthday.
It was a very good cake.
Let's
And
go!
brownies.
Big.
So,
Both were very good.
but we played a couple board games this week. I think my favorite, honestly, was when we had 7 of us playing Camel Up. That game is amazing.
That game was fun.
Which is a game where you bet on camels that are racing, and it is absolute chaos, and it's wonderful. But yeah, I've had a busy week, and it's only gonna get worse because I haven't even gear week this week for
Oh,
other
boy.
reasons. So, but yeah, basically just did all that stuff, and then watched a little bit of the shows we have for the podcast here.
We sure do. And ladies and gentlemen, you know what that means. It's time for the Save or Slay Anime Friday podcast. We are on episode 9. And you know what that means. We're deciding the top 3, the final 3 this week. The last show will go to leave us with 3 alone. I had intended to open the show with this, but John was not here, so we went into what we've been doing. Give me 1 second. I have to change this.
Something.
So-
We're up to episode 11. We
We
haven't
are,
watched
we are.
past that.
Yeah,
Don't
they-
put spoilers in the chat.
For like the don't
So
spoil
there's
the
harsh
don't
language.
spoil the end of the shows, because
Yeah,
all of these
harsh
shows are gonna
language
have one
warning.
episode left, with the exception of Dungeon Meshi, which is 2 core, which somehow evaded all of us till like a week and a half ago. Whoops. We
I feel
are
like I had heard about it, but I just like didn't.
we are stopping
I just
Dungeon
didn't
Meshi
process
at
it.
12, because 13 starts second core, so Dungeon Meshi will also only have one more episode left to watch, as with everything else that is left for the season. But this is actually a first in podcast history, which is why I had wanted to open with this. Realistically, we do not need to be doing this podcast or next week's podcast, because for the first time ever, we have such a clear consensus of what the best show of the season is. And honestly, it is shocking. I truly can't believe it. The power ranking reflects it this week. Ladies and gentlemen, we are heading into Hokkaido Gals are super
Holy shit,
adorable,
first
sweet.
time ever.
And I don't know how.
Seems-
We're still going to talk about it this week, and we'll consider by the end of the episode whether or not we need to do the finale, but it seems pretty clear on all of our parts that the best 3 shows are all Hokkaido Gals.
I don't see anything wrong with this.
True. He's
True.
kind of spitting with this one.
Also,
Honestly,
Sean,
yeah.
This
Oh,
bit is
before
much
we
funnier
continue-
if this week's episode wasn't good.
Correct.
Right.
What's up, John?
I was gonna say I didn't know that the Dungeon Meshi started on a second core because it's all titled the same thing in the
Yeah.
titles for it.
It apparently has been announced
But-
since October. That
I'm surprised that 13 is the second core instead of the last episode.
well, it's 24.
Red Dragon 1, Red Dragon 2, and Red Dragon 3 for
Yeah,
the next
it's-
2 episodes.
That's really interesting considering what this episode is.
Yeah.
Depending
So-
on where the next end, we might watch it because that would be one continuous arc finishing.
The whole thing
Just-
is it's
just as a
20.
future heads up,
It's
so we'll have to
we'll
peek
play
at
it by
too.
here, but it's 24 episodes, so I would normally split the core.
Yeah, fair.
And as far as I
Yeah.
know, the second OP starts in
Yeah, I
episode
think that's
13.
the real test. If
No,
13
it
starts
does.
with the new-
It
okay.
does, because the opening's available. You can watch it on sites, which means
Okay.
that it's out, which means that it switches for 13. I mean, if it happens at the end of the episode, like yada yada, there's maybe an argument. I should actually pop up the actual power ranking this week. So a little bit of a switch up. By the way, man, guys, we really ran that under the wire. If we had talked a little longer, I would not have been able to run that bit because we would have been out of April Fool's Day. So, explaining how the power ranking works this week, there is no separator line because what would I separate? The bottom show? That's a little misleading here. So it's just the normal. And what you need to know is that the shows that are bolded are shows that do not have a shared opinion with another member of the podcast this week. Yo, Michael, what a crazy power ranking we got going on here,
Yeah, that's
you and
crazy.
me. How do we do that? We're gonna have to
you know,
talk
it's-
about it.
Having correct opinion.
Yeah. Realistically, there is actually maybe something special that I would have to go check, but I would wager to say is maybe a first in the podcast history, or at least a first for a very long time. Do you guys realize what we've done this season?
All of us have a show.
All of us have a
in the
show at
last
the top
4.
4. That's truly impressive, considering
It
how
really
these
is.
Hasn't
usually
happened
go.
in a fucking
It
while,
would have been
huh?
a really long time. I struggle to think. It would have had to have been a season. Obviously, we could probably think really hard about what season 3 of us had a show in top 3, and then if the 4th show was someone else's. But it's been a bit, is what we can almost assuredly say.
Yeah. It's definitely been since before I was on podcast.
I feel like
But no, that wouldn't have been possible because there weren't 4 of us.
yeah.
At that
So
point.
it would have
been an unreal, a weird amount. Of
There
people.
it would have just had to have been like maybe a season. There might have been a season where there was a top
Maybe.
3 that split like that, but I almost feel like at that point the other 4th show was also one of the top 3 holders show, because so very rarely does someone do we not hit a point at like the 2nd or 3rd to last episode where we go, and this person is no longer talking. Sorry.
Yeah.
Crazy how this worked out.
I think we were. Oh, and my brain's like we were almost there, spring 2023. Then I went no. Skip actually went a decent bit before the end.
My brain is thinking Sasaki to Miyano, Bisco, Dress Up Darling. But I don't remember what the
No,
4th
I
show
had-
was.
I had a lot of show. Because that was the season that I had Fantasia Sango.
But-
And
Oh, Michael was Sasaki to Miyano then.
yeah,
Yeah.
Michael was talking to Miyano.
Okay.
You were Sabakui Bisco.
Yes.
John was Dress Up Darling.
Yes.
And I just had dog water shows that season.
That does sound right.
It certainly was
It
a
was-
season where
yeah,
shows
My
happened.
order up.
It was
That was-
bound to
'cause that
happen
was-
eventually.
Because that was the season that I had Requiem for a Rose King, and that
Yes.
was my number 1 show that went off.
And
at
that
like
certainly
6.
was not 4th, yeah. But either way, welcome to this week. We're talking episode 11s. We're so close for all the shows. Let's quick hop back over to this power rank. Let's talk about something. Sign of Affection
Come on, you
is
flipped my last 2 shows.
no, I didn't.
You flipped the yeah, you did. Not that it makes that big a difference either way, but
Oh, I did. How did I do that?
I don't know.
I mean, it does make a difference
Really
in that one of those is not as bolded. I will fix that for final results.
Just one less bold, one boldy.
But it's also just wrong for final results. Yeah, so villain's supposed to be under Hokkaido. I was wondering why I stared at that and was like, that's neat. I was like, that's a neat decision John made.
Wait, does that mean that? No, okay.
What that would change is that Mr. Villain would be bolded in
Bolded.
4th for him.
Yeah.
Then neither
Yeah.
of you would have Hokkaido
Bolded.
bolded.
Yeah.
Because now you both share it at 3.
That's all it does. But for what it's worth, Sign of Affection is my bottom show this week, and I'm going to be very upfront with it right now. I'm not voting it this week. I just want to make that very clear. It's just that in my opinion, it has the weakest episode of the bunch this week. However, it's still a fucking crazy ass show. So we'll talk about it. But let's get into and I quote a crazy ass show this week. Let's talk about Dungeon Meshi. Hey guys, did you know this episode's animated and this show's animated by Trigger? Could you check notes?
No
Tell?
way.
This is arguably the most Trigger this like they've ever been, and I was here for it.
I will be honest. There are a couple of moments where like I'm like, oh yeah, this is Trigger animation, and I'm like, do I like it here? And it was just like some of the running shots, in relation to running away from the dragon and or under the dragon, I'm like, I was a little like meh about, but that might just be just because. I don't know. It's just I wasn't sure how I felt about him. But I mean, this shot exists, so like, what are we doing here? So this week, the plan is to collapse the building on top of this dragon after luring it out and having it burn through all of its fire breath. Surely there will be no repercussions to doing this. So they attempt to do so. They quickly learned that the pans, the skillet pans, the actual base of it and the lid get hot when it's heated. It's almost like we learned this previously, but have forgotten. As such, this plan immediately starts to backfire, and the backup plan is run and hide and run and hide. And then we drop the building on it. That doesn't work so well. And so the group gets the group drops to the ground to pretend to be dead. So because if the dinosaur cannot see you, you are not there. That is, if you are not moving, it is fine. And Leos is getting ready to hit it in its triangular weak point underneath its neck that we learned about last week. When his sword decides, no, I don't want anything with this, and fucking leaps out of his hands. At which point Chilchuk goes, "Hey Leos, what the fuck was that? We're gonna talk about that later." if there was not a dragon in front of us, we would be talking
there's a
about it
later.
right now.
Mhm.
If there's a later. At which point, Senshi tries to help them get out from underneath the dragon where they wind up being trapped, and thus breaks his axe, the only weapon they have on them, to which he goes, well, I have a mithril dagger. It's a cooking knife, but it's mithril. I didn't want to say anything about it because I didn't want to get murdered by the dwarf woman for having it. At which point they go, neat, and try to stab the dragon in the foot with it, and it does go through the scales. And then they realize, it's a cooking dagger. That's not gonna be very good for actually killing, huh?
Dragon
and
did not like that though.
Yeah, and then Senshi goes, well, what if I try to go get Leos' sword? And gets absolutely bodied by this dragon. He might lose a couple inner organs there. Boy, is this brutal. To which Chilchuk goes, Leos, get the fuck out of here. I'm gonna try to get your sword. Also doesn't go too well. They get crushed under rubble. When does Leos running does not transition into the flashback, right? That holds until he's actually in the dragon's mouth, right? I'm trying to remember where that transitions so I can talk about it properly.
I don't remember.
I think it transitions after, because he runs into Marcel first, and it's like, here's the plan. You're going to explode the ground underneath me as I stand on the lid of the pod. And what we're gonna do is we're going to use this to launch me to the dragon's head, and I'm going to kill it. And she goes,
Oh, doesn't it happen as he gets launched?
I think it happens after he falls and hits the ground. Because then it transitions back. Because then it transitions back out of it. I thought.
No, because he falls to the ground. You don't quite see him hit the ground, and then you see the dragon fall over.
But I still think it transitions into the flashback, because then once Marcel gets back down there, it does the transition out from the scene with him and Phelan, to her being there about the leg. We'll get there. We're gonna use it there. I'm gonna talk about it there because it's gonna flow nicer in my brain. So they launch him we launch him into the air. Leos latches on to the dragon, and then Monster Hunter wise gets rammed into a couple of walls, and he goes, this isn't gonna work. I'm about to die. Well, my sister got eaten by a dragon. What's a leg or two? And launches his leg. There was a better word than launches, but
Kind of latches his leg into
yeah,
He kicks
just
it
fucking
in between the teeth.
yeah. Puts his leg in between the teeth and lets it so that he can hang down out of the dragon's mouth. And then as his leg gets chomped off, drop and stab the dragon in the neck. There's a lot of blood this episode, by the way, especially here. And the dragon and Leos both fall to the ground, and as Leos falls to the ground, we get a flashback of him and Phelan as kids, where they are absolutely adorable, and they're gonna go investigate a ghost in a local graveyard, and surely nothing will go wrong. And by that, I mean Leos gets possessed by a ghost. At which point, Phelan discovers that she has magical powers and bops him on the head to get rid of the ghost. She then goes, the ghost is from this guy buried in the ground who has a cursed ring, and everyone goes, why the fuck do you know that, kid? And then Leos is like, no, your powers are good. People just don't trust magic. Think about all the cool things you can be, like an exorcist or a priest. Or just a person who goes around and deals with ghosts. A spirit detective, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a really nice, adorable scene of them together going through this. And then we also get a scene where she's older, and she tells Leos that he doesn't need to be protecting her, and that it is okay for them to go their separate ways. In fact, they should do that. And then Leos wakes up, and he's missing a leg, and Marcel goes around and heals everybody, to which she explains that when you heal somebody, the speed at which their wounds heal is proportional to how much pain they feel upon healing. To which she goes, don't worry, Senshi, it's all gonna be fine. Phelan is a really good healer, but my healing's just as fast, if not faster. And he goes,
the Phelan's a good, better healer, but my healing is quicker.
yeah. And so she goes, doesn't that mean? And then she heals him in immense pain. She's also running around with her hands absolutely coated in blood because she was stabilizing Leos' leg to stop the bleeding. She then puts Leos' leg back together, and he goes, "That feels tickly." And she goes, "That's the healing process." I go, "I don't think that's... I think you should have disinfected the leg. I think that's the problem." And then they go and they carve open the dragon to try to find Phelan.
Well, they find her, all right?
They sure do find her in the dragon breath sack. You should watch this episode. Viewer,
So,
you should watch Dungeon Meshi so that you can get the impact that this episode is, so that you can end on the scene that we end on, and then immediately transition into the ending theme of Dungeon Meshi, which does not fit the tone of the situation you've just gotten out of.
so I do want to point this out.
Uh-huh.
They've said that no one can die in this dungeon, really.
They
So, like,
sure do say that, and we sure do have the scene last week where Namari goes to the the body retriever and goes, "Do you have it?" And they go, "No." Well, of course not. They have the body. So do they need to bring back the bits of the body, and can they fix this? I don't know.
Can they
Her
resurrect
soul is
her
clearly
here?
somewhere, right?
mhm.
Where?
Yeah.
Perhaps Michael has the answers and will refuse to elaborate, as he should. Thanks, Internet. Or perhaps he doesn't. Perhaps what he's been spoiled on has nothing to do with that. He won't say.
He got spoiled on Fallon being in.
Yeah, but he said he
No,
knows a little more
no.
than we do. So we're just gonna leave it at that.
There.
Yeah, I'm going to refuse to explain.
Yeah.
Once we get the thing,
You'll tell us?
I'll send the video that is the spoiler.
Oh, wonderful.
Because it's not actually a major spoiler in the video the way they present it. It's just kind of, oh, that's a thing.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't have seen that.
Really interesting thing that, again, adds to why I love Leos' character in this show. They start digging into the dragon, and then she goes, "It's getting dark. We should get light." And he goes, "Don't you dare fucking light a lantern in the fire dragon's stomach." And it's like, fair. You know what? I'm glad we have you here, because again, we don't talk about it a lot. He kind of gets underplayed for his importance in relation to this, but the man sure does know his monster ecology, and it sure does save their ass a bunch.
Also, something I just really enjoyed about this episode as well is the science of how dragons breathe fire was
The
really
click.
fucking cool.
The clicking is so cool. It's such a neat, like, and I can't even think of another piece of media that does that, like, in my head, like, off the top. Like, I don't know if that's a
Then
load of the
Witcher.
Witcher? Because I was going to
Witcher
say, like, I'm
does.
trying to think, is there a piece of media that could have been derived from? Maybe really old editions of D&D, but because I wouldn't know if that's the case, but even then, that feels like such an odd thing to lose, because of how cool it is. It works really well with the fire dragon, because it's like you're lighting like using a cigarette lighter to like flick and like ignite, so it's really cool.
Yeah.
God.
This episode's really good.
This episode's fucking amazing.
This episode just reminds you
Holy
that the show
shit.
is like actually kind of brutal at times.
Oh yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
for like it's like in that classic Trigger thing of like Trigger animates so wonderfully for like the playful aspect and the
Yeah.
colorful, and then it hits you with these scenes that are just like something out of a horror movie, and it's just like, oh yeah, he just lost his leg. That's not good.
I'm honestly impressed he got it back. I was like, that
I'm
was
impressed
gone.
they got Phelan back. At
Well-
least in pieces.
We don't know how many pieces we have. We know we have weapon, some strands of hair, and a skull.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know how it is.
And
It's
for all we
funny.
know, I can't even think of a way that they're wrong. Like, I can't even think of a way that the show spins it where it's like, no, that wasn't her somehow. I'm just really interested to see how this gets resolved. Because, like, they have enough, they've established enough about how death in the dungeon works that I'm really interested to see what the outcome is.
Spooky.
And also
I'm
just,
calling it
either way.
now.
man, go ahead, Mason.
I'm calling it now. The whole next quest is to let Leos become the head of the dungeon just so he can let Fallon's soul pass on.
But he doesn't want that. He wants her back.
Nobody wants that. Because what you call it also
Lucille.
likes
Lucille.
Lucille.
Dude, she is so gone. The moment the stomach's empty, she's just like devastated. And it like doesn't get better from there.
So, yeah, I'm interested where they go from here because it's like, how do you bring this corpse back to life, guys? If we're not that good at resurrection magic, are we going back to the surface and going, excuse me,
Gotta keep
healer.
gotta keep traveling to get more money, because that might be the next step we need here.
Listen,
Necromancers are just
healing,
healers, but 20 minutes
that's a
late.
little late. Necromancers are just healers that are just a little bit late.
Look, I've gone on record about my opinion about necromancers, is all I'll say.
True, it's something like lemons. You know, every
Yeah.
villain is lemons.
Every villain is lemons.
Every necro is lemons.
All necromancers are evil, yeah.
Yeah.
Alright.
But yeah, everything about this episode is fucking phenomenal. The moments, the character moments hit. It's like, I think it's like when his leg gets bit, the music like cuts out for a second or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm.
Some of the shows this week do a really good job using silence. And I think that's a very big thing that I love in anime, is when you have like these really bombastic moments and then everything just cuts. You're like, oh shit.
Yeah, we also have
shit's happening.
a lot of really, really cool animation this week for shows that's just like going into particular styles for reasons. This was a bomb ass week.
Yeah, it
Good
was.
ass week for shows.
This is fucking wild. Anything else about Dungeon Meshi?
No.
This dungeon sure do be messy.
Show sick. Watch Dungeon Meshi.
Yeah, you should go watch this show.
Please watch the show.
Please
It's
watch
very
this show.
good.
It's very good. Let's talk about a side of affection.
See a show that has been very good as well, but not as good.
It's still a good. Let me make this clear. It's still a
It's
good.
more of the
week.
same good. Is
Yeah.
how this show was this week. Basically, Yuki and Rin talk about Rin's like, hey, he hasn't really asked me to visit girlfriend yet, but like he's kind of older, so he doesn't really do that. But like, how did your boyfriend do it? And she's like, very embarrassingly, basically, as he shows up behind them and goes, hey, what you talking about? And so after Rin kind of backs off or runs away to let them have some alone time, basically, they kind of chat about what the plan is for today. And it's like, hey, do you ever like get nervous like I am all the time? And he's like, well, I once almost died in a shipwreck, and so that was a little bit nerve-wracking.
Before that, his answer is, yeah, probably. And she goes,
Yeah, probably.
no, I don't believe you. I think that means you haven't.
I guess.
Then they have a really cute moment where he's like holding her hands, and she's like, wait, there's people. This is embarrassing. He's like, no, I don't care. Give. Basically, Yuki ends up going to go interview for a part-time job, and we recognize that this aunt is literally the same character as the niece. It's very cute. It's when we get the call from Shin, who's like, hey, I'm gonna tell her. I'm gonna tell her the thing.
It's always like, you
Cool.
didn't tell her already? Okay.
It's almost like, okay, sure, you good, man. And then we have a scene where Yuki and her childhood friend are at the supermarket, and the guy has a mask on. And you think this issue would have presented itself before, so she would know how to deal with it, but she just did not think of how to deal with it in the moment here. Which begs the question of like, man, what the fuck did deaf people do during COVID? That sounds like miserable.
Not have a good time.
No.
Yeah.
A
lot of Instacart.
And for the first time ever, he stopped her in the middle of signing something because basically they were talking about stuff, and he's like, yeah, I know because I went to the bar and we talked and we drank a bit. And she's like, when did you guys become friends? He's like, we are not friends. I hate things.
He is my
like,
mortal enemy.
That doesn't make any sense because you cannot hate that guy because let's be honest, even if you try, no one can hate Tomomi because he's kind of great. And then he stops her. And she's like, wait, he never stops you from signing. That's kind of rude. And after a couple flashbacks, they part ways again. And he's like, hey, if he hurts you, I'll beat him up.
I got this.
To which Yuki's just kind of like, okay, but he won't because he's just the best. And so finally, Shin goes and talks to Emma, which is an issue we've been worried about for a while here. And they have a moment where there's very sincere talk, and he goes, "Listen, you know that thing I talked about?" She's like, "Yeah, you talked about that thing where you said you'd absolutely never fall in love with me." He's like, "Yeah," and she's like, "Wait, what?" And then it just cuts basically from that conversation.
Because then they
And then
fucked.
in the grass.
No.
But then we
Like
have
a
Itsuomi
lie.
visiting Yuki. and
Man.
She runs out in the PJs and they talk a little bit. It's very cute because they basically have this talk where he's like, "Hey, we should go on a date and you should pick it." And she's like, "Huh. I've been so focused on getting a job to travel overseas, I forgot we haven't really gone on a date in a minute. So we should do that." So I thought this week was really good.
Yeah.
This was
Oh,
just
it was a
overall
great
good week.
It
episode.
was great.
And I will agree, it's a good week for shows. I still think this was easily one of the better shows this week, though.
I absolutely adore the conversation with Shin and Emma. Him just going, "Yeah, I was gonna die before I told you this.
I was gonna take that to the grave.
I was quite literally going to go to my grave before I cleared up this misunderstanding, but here we are." And then just the, huh?
Huh? Wait.
Huh?
Like that fucking
Huh?
look that she gives him with
Yeah.
that image you posted is just so
Oh.
good. Where she's like,
And then
Wait a minute,
and now
am
we'll
I
never
the
and
idiot?
we'll never know. God. I also really like, again, I love Oshi. Him so blatantly toning down his playful antagonism towards her to just be like, "I'm trying to be nicer," and she's like, "It's weird." She's just
Don't
like,
do
"You
that,
can."
stop.
She's like, "You can be a little bit sincere and still be you," and he's like, She thinks I have good quality. Smile. Walks away.
smile. She will remember this.
The supermarket seems a little wild because, holy fuck, dude, who does that? Who walks up to a person and go, "Mine"?
Checking out of my line. First off, biggest question: who the fuck doesn't have a line in a supermarket? I worked as a cashier for 3 years. Not once did I ever go out of my way to go have someone check out of my line. Fuck that shit.
Yeah,
Yeah, I will
wild.
just sit there. I'm okay.
I'd have been like, "You can come find me. I'll be vibing over here."
One of the show's weird things. It feels like people are really blind when it comes to seeing hearing aids. How the fuck
they
does
look
the
like
guy
headphones,
after
to be
30
fair.
seconds of conversation not notice the hearing aids in her ear?
Yeah.
To be fair,
I
have you
don't
ever
know.
seen those before? They do look kind of
Or-
just like headphones.
Or just stop and realize she's not talking back to you.
Yeah.
Have you considered that maybe you've done something that is incorrect?
No, or autopilot, dude.
It just is really odd. 'Cause I don't know. I feel like hearing aids aren't that hard to notice. Maybe they are. I don't know.
Look, as someone who works in a retail job where I often have to speak to people who don't speak English, and usually that is an immediate notice of, this person does not speak English. Time to bring out my phone and type messages in translation to them so that we can figure things out. And the other day, quite literally 2 weeks ago, I had my first deaf customer do an Instacart pickup. And I had a coworker who was like, "I don't know what to do with this." And I'm like, "I will just go out and type on my phone to them.
Yeah,
I'll handle this so you don't do anything wrong, but I know how to have this conversation." And they were lovely. Those customers are absolutely lovely. The whole way through.
I also had to do that at work in a hospital where they're kind of stuck there. Yeah. You got to kind of make it work and figure it out.
Oh, this show's good. I love this show. It's very nice.
Yeah. Just the only reason it's in fourth is just because everything else this week I thought went absolutely buck fucking wild.
They all had really, really great character moments. While Sign of Affection certainly was just being more Sign of Affection, which is already a good show.
That's all it
Yeah.
has to do.
These characters are all amazing. I love all of them immensely.
Mhm.
It just didn't have any fucking crazy wild moment that had me pause the stream with Mason and go, "What the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Why did the show need to pull this?" We'll get to that with Mr. Villain.
We'll get to that with Hokkaido as well. There's a certain scene in that show.
Yeah,
where,
no, but
there's a couple.
That was
there's a
not nearly
couple.
as crazy as the intro to Mr. Villain.
We'll talk about it. I really like it. we'll get there. Other thing, last week we were like, she's gonna work in a diner. It's a cafe, little more reasonable, like a little
She's
more
mainly
reasonable
doing,
than a diner.
all
Like
the
she's
kitchen work,
not,
basically.
yeah, she's not like kitchen staff in a busy diner. She's like, we have stuff that we can pre-prep for a cafe. Much more tangible. And that now means
But yeah, this episode
It was a good time.
ladies and gentlemen, it's time to talk about the number one declared winner of this week, the best show of
the
all
whole
time.
season. Actually, the greatest show ever made.
Yeah, it just
Yeah.
simply cannot be beat.
Yeah. So Hokkaido Gals this week.
Are they super
This episode
adorable?
focuses 97% of its time essentially
That's
on
true,
this
there-
little.
There is a small
There's a tiny
percentage
little
where it
cutaway that
doesn't.
happened. Yeah, it's a little datey date between Suba and Fuyamina. They're going off. She's like, hey, I want to show you. Well, she hit him with like the I have to talk to you about something at the end of last episode, and that's always a good thing, always.
Oh,
And so yeah, that was
We'll get
God.
there.
That scene was
We'll get there.
crazy. It certainly hit you with the Omori out of nowhere.
yeah.
I almost paused there and go, why? I didn't ask for Omori. Okay, anyway.
We'll get
But
there.
they're having a little datey date. And she goes, I want to show you something, but I'm not going to tell you where we're going. You just had to trust me. He goes, okay. And they got on a train. It's like a 3-hour train ride or whatever that takes 5 minutes. Actually for them, it felt like it took 5 minutes for them. It was like 30 seconds for us. Crazy. Nothing happens on this train the whole way because it's like 6 a.m. when we leave.
She honks
because it's
shoes.
a long train ride.
And then he honks shoes on the
He's-
bus
Yeah, he certainly just sits there.
and stares
Yeah.
at her and calls her pretty. Whoops.
Yeah.
Whoops. Sorry.
Yeah.
Bad. Whoops. Didn't mean to.
He calls her beautiful, which is, I believe, I believe that's exactly what he calls her in the first episode when he sees her. I think it's the first word he says to her. Which I thought that was really neat that they have that thing there, but then they have a very different reaction after.
Mhm.
But I think he says something pretty similar, which is him fumbling over his words immensely and not knowing how to recover from that, because there is no recovering from that. He fucked up, or you just got to go with it, or
One could say
that's how
he
you got to do
doesn't.
it.
One could say he hasn't fucked up, but in his brain he's fucked up.
True. Yeah. But they go on the little datey date, and the idea is that it's now spring, and mentions me. It's crazy seeing the show with color now.
Yeah.
Because seeing everything not just being white is crazy. But they get to this place, and she's like covering his eyes on her toes because she's much shorter than him. I thought that was really cute seeing her like walking on her toes. And they're at I don't know exactly what you'd call it, but it's a place with
It's a park.
with cherry blossom trees. I believe is the tree type that they say.
It's not cherry
It's
blossom.
not
It's
exactly
another
cherry
it's
blossom,
another
it's a
blossom. It's
different
not exactly
blossom.
cherry, but it's
Yeah.
not the ones in Tokyo. But they look similar. They're like a slightly darker pink.
Mm.
But yeah, it's a very, very cute scene. She's like, yeah, I wanted to bring you here because he mentions like fucking 5 or 6 episodes
No,
ago.
this was literally
It was last week.
this was
that
last
last
week,
week?
on the walk. Yeah, because
Oh.
they
Yeah.
Also
never
for,
have
like-
they never have that walk and talk ever until that. Like they don't ever
Oh, yeah.
walk anywhere because the snow. So it has to be last week's.
Oh yeah. He's like, yeah, I miss that I'm not gonna see the sakura trees because that's like those are only in like certain regions of Japan. And so they go here and she's like, yeah, I wanted to have you see this, and it's really cute. They have this whole little cute thing. They take some pictures together. The picture taken by this elderly couple. This elderly couple is fucking hilarious. Because they are old and being silly. The show's dub is ridiculous because these characters talk. I mean, they probably have in the sub too. Every character talks like they are 15 years old, like in modern day English, where they just say they just talk in nonsense.
Yeah,
These grandparents also sound like they are not 70 years old, like they are presented as. But yeah, it's very funny. We got all these like cute little scenes. I don't remember exactly how the events.
They go to the shrine first.
Oh yeah, they go to
Well,
a shrine.
before they
do
take
shrine
the
things.
photo, they talk about the fact of like we should come back here and see what it looks like when we're older, because doing that will give us a different perspective of this really, really beautiful location.
Oh
And,
yeah,
and then he
I
goes,
forgot. And they go to the shrine,
yeah,
and she goes, "Hey, do you want to know the shrine?" It's like, yeah, it's a shrine. It's a shrine for women, or mainly.
it's
And he
popular
goes,
amongst
oh, why?
women.
You know, it's a fertility shrine. And then they make a joke about going back there later,
Which
and
is
it
so
goes
funny.
right over his fucking head.
It's
I was
so
like, damn,
good.
she just fucking hit you with it, and you just went.
If we come back
That
when
was-
we're older, will we still be friends? Buddy,
Girl,
no.
Girl,
Yeah, I think that she hits her with the. Then she hits him with the. With if people see us, what do you think they'll see us as?
That's after.
Oh.
That's after we do the cutaway to go back home,
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah, we
after
do the
bumper
cutaway.
cars, which is an
Oh, yeah.
entire
Bumper
sequence we
cars.
have to talk about. But let's talk about the cutaway first.
Yeah, we cut away to Natsukawa studying at home. This is the older one,
Yes.
and she's like she's practicing for testing for like college entrance exams, I assume, and she's timing herself, and she's 5 minutes too slow on this practice exam, and she goes, "I'm gonna take a break. I want to see what Tsubasa up to." She then goes to his house because they live 30 seconds away from each other, and we meet older Tsubasa, aka Dad. Which is crazy. We've met a parent finally,
And then
but
we
isn't his grandma, or I mean, no, we know the mom, but
cut away, and we'll never talk about this again. Surely, it
Yeah,
was definitely not an important
never.
point that his father is home for some reason.
yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, then they go karting. Or in some amount of this time, they go karting. And
Yeah.
during this go karting, the opening plays.
What the fuck is
And
this?
we see a live performance of the band playing the opening.
This is so rad. This is insane.
It was so
animation
cool.
was wild too. Like,
It was
why
so
was
cool.
it so good?
It also just works so well. It's just who did like the band go, "We want to do this," so they did it? Like,
Maybe.
what the fuck is this in the manga? Michael,
don't
you'll
know.
have to tell me.
Yeah, I'll have to tell you if I do actually go and read the manga, which I might not.
Fair.
God, the character Suba's such a different looking character. It's ridiculous. But yeah, actually, to add on to a thing said earlier with her hitting him with the Yankee Spelunky, as one could call it, with the we should come back to the fertility shrine later.
We say Yogi Splinky in relation to this show far too often.
I know I say that's what I say in terms of everything. Important picture to that. See, the second picture probably doesn't read correct. That's a neutron star. Oh, but yeah. So then she, after this whole thing, she hits him with. So if people see the two of us walking together, what do you think they see? And he goes, he sits here for a second. He goes, I could say something, but I don't want to say it. But I could say it, but I don't want to say it. And then goes, we look like two really good best friends. And then he has like a panic attack about it. He's like, wait, that was the wrong words to say. And then he gives her
He gives her the friendship bracelet first.
the friendship bracelet he got from the gift shop earlier.
Sorry, the
where he
promise
also,
bracelet.
It's a
it's
promise
a promise
bracelet.
band. Yeah, 'cause the idea is like you make a promise and it can't break until you've made something, or it breaks if you break the promise. There's a whole thing there, I think.
Yeah.
And then he's like about to like actually like confess or something. It's like they're like reaching what would look like that.
He's about to
And then she
retcon
hits him
his
with
fuck
the
up.
just so you know, I'm leaving the country like next week. Lamau, I'm studying abroad to study makeup or to study cosmetics. And it's like a really touching scene where she's like, I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for you, because you pushed me and made me a better person, made me more responsible about my life. And Tsubasa's like, I don't want her to leave. What the fuck?
He
I don't like
physically
this.
breaks down. The
Yeah,
man
it's-
breaks into tears and has no like audible reaction. He's just done.
It's so
It's
good.
wild.
Good.
And then this ends with him just giving her a hug because that's the only thing he could think to do there. God, this scene was so good.
Dude, this episode literally had me go like jaw drop, go, oh shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
twice. Because the
Did
opening
not expect
plays.
this.
The opening
Yeah.
plays, and I was not ready for that set of scenes. I'm like, what the fuck am I watching?
The opening was so sick though.
No, and
Which,
for
which
what
fun
it.
fact, if you pull up the video of it, that's what that guy looks like.
Yeah,
It's
no,
fine.
I immediately looked it up because Michael and I were both
Yeah,
curious.
because I think I was like, is this like
So did I.
Imagine Dragons in Arcane, or is this band a canon to this universe? Like how Imagine Dragons is canon in the League of Legends universe?
Yes.
The answer is yes.
Can you name 100 League of Legends characters? Names the all members of Imagine Dragons.
names the 4 members of Imagine Dragons.
No, but like even the stuff before this, because like the end of this episode's fucking hog wild and insane and incredible. But like the subtle stuff just on the date in the park is all so good. Like it's so clearly and like I don't know how they did it. Her outfit choice that they wind up having her in actually is so fucking incredible for this episode.
So
Like
nice.
like it just works with everything that she winds up doing and plays off so well with like the scene. The shot they do when he opens his eyes and sees her with the park is it's such a her environment because mainly because of all the pink, right?
Yeah, I think that's
But,
it.
like-
Pink's just kind of like her thing.
But like it's
But
so
it worked.
but it's even like it almost feels like the show is like setting up for like winter is Natsukawa's like season, spring is hers, fall will be the gamers. Like that because it almost feels like the characters do really
And
really
summer
match.
will be Matsuo's.
Yeah, baby, it's time for the
Yeah.
boy. He needs it after this. This episode's just so good.
Mhm.
Yes.
Am I putting a vote on the
Very much
show?
so.
Maybe. Probably.
It sure
Who
is
knows?
between this and something else, unfortunately, for me.
Who knows if I want to cause havoc.
That's true.
Swear to God, Michael, don't you dare do this to me again.
Again.
What do you mean by that?
Don't you dishonor the family.
What do you mean again?
Don't dishonor the family. Is all I'm saying.
Do we have additional thoughts on the gals?
Yeah.
I'm really interested about why his father's here and where we're going with that.
I can't wait for him to break down about this, and then his dad's gonna be like, "Hey, we're moving abroad."
That'd be absolutely
I
wild.
almost don't feel like we're doing that.
Hey,
But,
son,
like,
haven't
You know
talked
what
to
you know what'd be even crazier if his dad was like, "Hey son, you want to go abroad?" and he goes, "No, Dad, I can't do that. I have a traumatic childhood experience with ship travel. Don't you
No.
know this?"
What would be even better is if his dad comes through. Hey, son, remember how me and your mom got divorced recently? Well, I met this great woman up in Hokkaido.
Hey, I want you, Mason. By the way, I want you to know.
has a daughter
I want you to
around
know.
your age.
Michael got that reference, and it's not a reference to a show that you would think of. Is all I'll say.
Nodame Kantabali, baby.
Oh my
The
god.
second half of Nodame Cantabile, a 58-something episode series, or however long it is, for the first season,
Oh,
is
God,
all about how
no.
she is going to go abroad and he can't follow her because he has child trauma about ship travel. It is the most out of fucking nowhere. It's not actually because they talk about it a lot at the beginning of the show.
It's like in like the first episode.
Yeah.
It's like it shows him in like the plane crash
Yeah.
that causes this.
he just can't. And it's like not to sidetrack on the Nodama. It's the whole reason he can't leave Japan to like pursue being,
Pianist.
that and also
He's a
a
conductor.
conductor.
That's what he does.
He does both.
Mm.
He was a pianist and he goes to be a conductor because the whole thing's about control and understanding how to actually take care of people and no Nodame Cantabile. It's a show of old
He's a
time.
really
Certainly a show.
The
One
rest
of the
of
shows.
show
of all
kind
time.
of.
Speaking of a show of old time, Mason, we're back again.
Yeah,
I didn't think we were
it's
coming
not
back
bad.
to this, but we're back again.
I'm glad we're back to this.
It's-
This episode was
yeah.
fucking incredible.
We got
So
answers
this-
about some things.
So this episode starts off where Mr. Villain's hanging out with the cherry tree girl, just like, oh, it's springtime, it's in bloom again. And he hands her some rice balls. She goes to town on him.
Sorry, I just remembered a line that's gonna happen a little bit that is tangentially related to the rice balls. I can't help but laugh.
And then we see this kid like sitting down under like another tree a little further away. It's like, damn, I want to talk to and chucks a stick at Mr. Villain's head and hits him. And I audibly went, damn, that kid's got a good arm, because it is a far distance.
Which, with the context we have,
Yes, makes sense.
does it? Does it make... You want to tell me how the tree throws a branch at him? I want to know. The tree from across the room just goes, twig, just launches it out at him.
Look.
I don't think it makes any more... I think it makes less sense when you realize it's not an actual kid, but hey, that's just me.
So, Mr. Villain goes and talks to the kid, and the kid's like, hey, I want to talk to that girl, but I can't. I see she likes triangles. Can you give these to her? And just gives him, like, dirt triangles.
I was not ready for the line. I saw what you did there. She likes triangles. And I go, I don't think that's what that is, but we'll go with it. You're onto something, kid.
I met my girlfriend. I was like, that bitch loves triangles.
And so, he's just like, sure, kid. Also, don't fucking hit people with sticks. What the fuck is wrong with you? Goes and gives her the dirt mound triangles. Comes back to the kid and he's like, what'd she say? What'd she say? And he's just like, she was confused, but thankful. And he's just like,
score.
Well,
we did it.
Can you do this thing for me too? He's like, no, kid, I'm not helping you anymore. Stop. And then he brings them a string telephone so that they can talk to him.
Good old string telephone, just like the good old days.
It's really cute. And then we cut and we go to the tree where the kid was at has been uprooted. And the kid's not there anymore. And the string telephone's just sitting there. And you realize that the kid is actually the tree. And he's a tree spirit. It's really fucking sad out of nowhere. Why you gotta do this to me, show?
Yeah, because then he walks back to the girl and she goes, I say hi and there's no response and you cry.
He doesn't respond anymore. I just got to meet him.
They're gonna make him a promenade.
Yeah, they're gonna make him a promenade. And then it turns out he's actually a bench that is right under her tree. So when he gets built again, he wakes up on the bench. Mr. Villain finds him. He's like, oh, hey, you're back. What's up? And the kid's like, cool, I get to actually talk to her and like hang out. I can go under the tree now. And he's just like, well, tree might not bloom again next year. And he's like, I will wait as many springs as it takes till I can meet her again.
This is the plot of a movie. This is the plot of an anime movie.
Yeah.
With a twist at the end, it's that they're both trees. And you just didn't know.
And then we only really get 2 like bits for this episode.
We sure do.
The second bit is Mr. Villain's walking home. It's raining, and he hears meowing in the park. And he goes and checks it out, and it's a robot cat. It's like basically on its last legs, about to die from like the cold and not eating, even though it's a robot. So he's just like, "That's a robot. I'm not getting involved with this." And then the cat keeps meowing. He's like, God damn it. Okay, fine. And just leaves the umbrella for it. Comes back the next day. And the cat talks. And he goes, all right, man, you can keep the umbrella. It's fine. And the cat goes, I'm going to die here. So thanks, I guess. And then Mr. Villain comes back with charging back and charges him up. The cat bites him. Turns out he's a robot weapon from another alien race trying to take over the Earth. It doesn't go well because it doesn't pierce the skin or anything. And they end up like chatting a bit. The cat starts crying because he feels like he's useless. Eventually they like are friends for a little bit. Mr. Villain ends up taking him back to the ship because Rooney tells him that there's probably another race and they need to make sure there's no weapons or anything. Hands the cat over to Rooney. He's like, hey man, can I go? And Rooney cuts him off and goes, no, we got this, don't worry. And they take apart the cat. Mr. Villain sees his head on a lab table. It's really traumatizing for him. And then Rooney calls him up and is like, all right, the inspection's done and the cat's put back together. Cat freaks out and wants to kill Rooney, but jumps on Mr. Villain, and now Mr. Villain has a robot cat for a pet. And that's this week's episode. And yeah, no, this episode didn't need to stab me twice, but it sure did. It sure did that.
It's good.
Yeah,
I went
it's
this
good.
week, I'm like, I don't think it can top last week. And I stand by that, but it's a really good episode. I'm happy to get, like, the wraparound to the Cherry Blossom episode where it's like, we're going to give you the answer to what you wanted about if what you thought it might be is true. And then it's like, here's the second kid. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm like, the second kid's only ever at the tree, so they're clearly actually the trees, as was kind of apparent from the first time with her, but now we know. The more you know. Reading Rainbow. And the cat's fucking... I adore this bit with the cat.
This
It's
cat's
very
so-
good. I do like that the meow's a little off, too. Like, it's very clearly... retroactively, you're like, yeah, it's not a real fucking cat, duh. That meow's a little sus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did enjoy this episode of Villain, despite, like I said, being the resident villain hater on the podcast. I don't get the point of the tree spirit thing, but I mean, it is a cute story. I like the robot cat as well.
I think it's just the show going, we have aliens, what else is real? Right? And it's like, how do you connect a space being's relation to, like, nature and, like, the beauty of it? And the answer is through children and the power of magic and illusions.
Sorry, I was busy.
Ticket tapping. Michael, what did you think of Villain this week?
Oh, this episode was fucking fantastic. Yeah, the thing with the kids was great. I thought that was adorable. The cat was amazing. He's just a little guy. He's just a little guy.
Dude.
Just a little dude.
But yeah, Mason hit it on the. I was not ready for the show to stab me twice. I made this joke before. I think the way to summarize this episode is it takes a knife and it stabs you, and it twists it, and you go, okay, that, you know what, I could deal with that, and then it adds a second fucking knife.
Yeah.
He goes,
Well, while Sean's telling, I did also do one other thing. I did watch one anime. I finished Solo Leveling.
Ooh.
And that show was decisively mid. I'll be honest, is what I'm gonna say.
I'm excited to watch it and see if I have the same opinion as you, because I plan to finish that and Tamer.
For me, it was very much action goes burr, plot goes her. Because it's just like I love the action. I like the idea of the show, but it feels like sometimes it's just like, oops, thing happened for the sake of plot. Well, guess we gotta be cool now. I guess we gotta kick in our inner Kirito now.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm gonna finish that. I'm gonna finish Tamer, obviously, because I only watched this week's episode of it. I'll finish whatever goes here. I'm probably not going back to Metallic Rouge, and I'm probably not going back to Fluffy. But I will be binging the rest of I will be binging the rest of Freerun as well to have that done. I'm still waiting on a vote. Okay.
I'm thinking.
Big deep thing for Michael. Look at that thinking face. Get the finger on the bottom lip there.
Post.
What is with the curve meme? Fun fact in baseball news, by the way, the Tigers won again today and are 4-0.
Okay. So I don't normally do this. I will raise this point. Do you want me to remake this voting document? Or are we actually doing this?
I don't know what the responses ended as.
Oh. Well, Stunge Meshi has no sleighs. Hokkaido has one sleigh, and Villain and Sign of Affection are tied with 2. So do you want me to remake this voting doc, or are we actually wheeling this? I'm
That's
asking
a different thing to be on the wheel.
I also expected a different thing to be on the wheel, I'll be real.
I'm asking this because are we memeing, or do we want this vote to go through? I don't normally do this.
I'm partially memeing, but also blood for the blood god.
See, if I voted the way I originally wanted to, there would be 3 things on the wheel right now. So that would be the only difference for me, is that another thing would have been on the wheel.
I think I know what it would be, given the
I would have also
situation.
voted Hokkaido.
Okay. Pull up.
I'm down for a 3-way wheel.
I expect the Side of Affection and Hokkaido to end up on this wheel. I didn't expect 2 votes to end up on Villain. That's crazy.
Well, because I think at the end of this episode, I think Hokkaido is better than Villain, personally, for me. I'm actually really excited to see the end of this show. And like we talked about it, I was the person this show had to convince that it deserved to be here, and I think it legitimately does. It probably has maybe the best turnaround ever of a show. You guys are fucking wild this season.
You could tell my nickname exactly what I wanted.
So ready to get scammed again.
Mine was
Well,
Alright.
so here's the reason I raised this point is because there is a name on this document. I know whose it is. It's time to be. I'm going to be silly. And so my point here was, I wanted to make sure that we are comfortable with this intention happening. And if we are, we're sending the wheel to Villain and Sign. We're not adding Hokkaido onto it, because if we're keeping the votes, we're keeping the votes. We're either keeping this vote doc or we're re-voting. Is the point.
okay.
And I know if we re-vote, something different is probably going to happen. So, are we just wheeling Sign and Villain?
I mean,
That
that's
seems
the
to be the
2 slays.
consensus. Okay, take Hokkaido off that wheel.
All right.
And as per
I cannot
usual,
believe Hokkaido's getting top 3. That's fucking insane.
as per usual, the show that this lands on is off the podcast.
Yep. Live by the wheel, die by the wheel.
True.
So fucking stupid.
Okay. You boys, I'm gonna be very excited to watch this last episode of Sign of Affection and to see how we feel about this. Because I've said that this is now the 3rd time I've said this, and I've been proven wrong every time so far. So I'm excited to see if this is what happens again. So I'm gonna bring up this. I'm gonna gauge this conversation now, because I think now's the appropriate time to have this conversation. And last week, I stepped away from the computer, and I went to bed, because that was the intention. And by that I mean I showered and then went to bed. And because I did that, I raised the question in the chat for everybody about whether or not we wanted to keep power ranking. And the reason I said this is because I think when these moments happen on the podcast, the power ranking in particular can be a very frustrating piece of information, because it can feel like people are voting outside of what the power ranking is. Now, for what it's worth, that didn't happen this week. You two did have that show as your lowest show for this week.
Yeah.
So, in that regard, I can't be upset power ranking wise about that. What I am going to say is this is going to be a fucked season for long-term statistics.
Fair.
And that is more so why I brought up dropping the power ranking, is because we are wholeheartedly going to have a season now where I'm going to say what has the most first and second place finishes, and what of those shows, maybe 2, are assuredly not going to be in our top 3. Which, you know, I think, to me, as someone who uses that information as, like, a statistical guide for how I think the season went, and, like, do I think that, you know, like, do I think it represents how the season was? Normally, I think we're pretty on point with it. I think it's cool to see something that was an upset happen and to see it in the data where it changes. But it's interesting, and that's why I brought that up in the consistency scene. We still wanted to keep the power ranking, and all I'll say is, the only alternative we would have is I would just ask us all to have prepared to say what we think the best show this week was, because that question is incredibly less charged than power ranking, where the power ranking can very much vary between all of us on whether we want to power rank for the week or whether we want to power rank overall. Because sometimes I think this week's episode is so strong when we do the podcast that we naturally want to put something really high in the power ranking to represent a really good week. But really, in our mind, it might not be there, which is fine. Yeah. I think we recognize that when we do it. It's just a matter of how does the mental then stick with you if you're consistently power ranking and things are consistently somewhere, and then suddenly they're not consistently there by the end. And that's it's just an interesting thought. It's why I brought it up, because it's something to think about. I will say what I think has been my thought for the past 2 weeks since solo leveling went off and then Tamer went off. Again, I am happy that in every instance of this, we have watched the next episode, and I have felt that, you know what, maybe we didn't make the wrong decision. I will say that this podcast can get very personal for all of us, because we do pick these shows and we do back these shows to try to get them as far as it goes. But I also stand by the fact that I trust you guys as my co-hosts to legitimately mean the conversations we have and the outcomes we get to actually be what the podcast is about. That's the whole point of the podcast. If every outcome turned out the way I expected or wanted, wouldn't be a very interesting podcast. I might as well just be talking about the 12 shows myself. So when people sit down and say, well, that really doesn't seem right, well, historically throughout this podcast, when something like that has happened, it has usually been a split opinion amongst the podcast. It is actually a decisive moment where we're like, yeah, the people who were on the podcast for Skate and Horimiya had drastically different opinions about those two shows. And it just happened that one won out. If you swap people around and there were different people, different outcomes might have happened. And that's just how it cuts that way. It's the same thing with Sasaki to Miyano. I will always put on the front, and also maybe not a front, that I am bitter about To Your Eternity not making a top 3 cut. It isn't the first time that things like this have happened in the history of the podcast, and it won't be the last, I am sure. It's just stuff that I think is worth saying in the moment, because I know I know when things happen, we all individually probably take them certain ways. And I'm sure there is very rarely a time, I'm sure all of us have a time where we have vividly been upset by something on this podcast that we do not feel was the right thing to have happen, but it happened. And so I just feel like that's a thing worth expressing as we head into next week final. With our shows in top 3 being Dungeon Meshi, Hokkaido Gals, and Mr. Villain's Day Off. And with that, guys, that concludes this episode, and we will see you for the finale.